We now know that anxiety can be caused by different foods that you eat based on the gut-brain connection.
Again, she started talking about chakras, and I'm like, what's a chakra? Like Shaka Khan? Like,
Right.
Sounds like witchcraft to me.
This is an intervention.
Apparently.
You saying you
Nope.
need some
Shout out to nepotism.
Which I also just want to say thank you for your service.
Oh
Truly.
yeah. Shout out to Chris.
Oh, well, here's some pills. You might deal with this for the rest of your life.
Did you have our dad's brain map too?
Yeah. Learned a lot. You ready?
Let's get it. Absolutely not. Oh boy. All right, folks. Hey, what now?
I didn't know you were going right into it.
I was gonna Well, this is the intro. Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of That's How You Feel. Today, I am still your host, Caleb. I haven't been fired yet, and I'm joined by my other host.
Well, I'm Levi. He's on the border of being fired.
And we have a very special guest in the building. We have none other than my brother, shout out to nepotism, Chris Foreman.
Hey, all right.
Nepotism.
Yeah, we're happy to have him here because we got some exciting topics that we'd like to talk about today. We're going to get into, I didn't think we were going to actually get into this topic so early.
I'm glad we did. This is one of the topics that I've been looking forward to.
Yeah, but we're only 3 episodes in.
I mean,
And already we're hitting this. I wasn't ready for it.
we're just on that level.
So, okay, before we even
Actually,
get to
you
it,
have connections.
Chris, welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
This is not even about him. I'm about to ignore you just for a whole second. So the first episode hasn't even come out yet. We shot it a couple days ago, and I kid you not, the next day I was walking around like at the grocery store, and I was thinking to myself, so this is fame now. Like is this what fame
You're ready to
feels?
sign autographs already?
Dude, I was walking around like, this is fame, bro. Like, I'm famous and these people don't even know it.
Chris, has he always strived for to be famous?
Yeah, I would say in the weirdest way possible.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That checks.
Yeah.
Weirdest way
Yeah.
possible.
So this is now he's settling into something that might actually work.
We'll see. I didn't tell you another thing. So I was talking to my dad and he asked me what the title of the podcast was. And I told him, I was like, hey dad, the title of the podcast is I Don't Like My Dad. And he laughed so hard about it. He was like, that's funny. I was like, Dad, I'm messing with you. That's not the name of the podcast.
He was ready to go with that title.
Oh yeah, he was ready. He was like, I get it. I understand. And I was like, Dad, I'm just messing with you. Okay. Another question people might have for us is our intro video. There's 2 babies in that video. Who are those babies?
Well, I mean, one is my son.
And the other one is my son. Just people that might be curious about those babies. If you don't know, why are there babies in the video, whatever. So Chris is here today. We're excited because we're going to be covering mental health and wellness therapy. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to get into that. Last thing on my tangent, because I had a whole bunch of things that I was thinking about. So remember when we talked about, I introduced you on episode 1, and I said that one of your fun facts was that you like wrestling.
Yeah.
We're not done with that. Remember when I told you the story about how I was watching wrestling, and my brother came in and ruined it for me and said that's fake?
Was that
brother,
you?
That brother right there. I was watching The Rock wrestle, and I was cheering at the TV. This dude walks in and goes, that's fake, right? I was like, I know.
I do not remember this.
He doesn't recall. It doesn't hold up in court.
It's probably something I would have.
Okay.
And I
That makes sense.
haven't watched wrestling since that day.
That's a lie because we had you over for the Royal Rumble and you watched it with a couple of our friends and actually enjoyed yourself.
Well, yeah, I was with my friends. Of course I'm going to enjoy myself. I don't care what we were doing.
Bro, you were glued to the TV.
All right, we're going to move on. So
I still don't get it.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there. Yeah. We'll invite you to the WrestleMania party.
I won't come.
Caleb, we'll tell him about that else. He's coming.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to get him to it. All right, so back to Chris, though. So, again, the topic of today's episode is wellness, mental health, therapy, all those things.
First off, I have something.
Okay.
2 things. 1, you forgot what you forgot last time.
What did I forget?
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Absolutely.
And follow us on all the other socials. So we have Facebook, Instagram, at this time we probably have TikTok.
MySpace?
TikTok. Maybe Xanga.
All right, cool.
Farmville?
What's Farmville?
Farmville.
You don't know what Farmville is?
I thought he said Farville. And
Come
I was
visit
like,
our
what?
farm. We have an animal farm.
Also, Caleb in the last episode let me know about y'all's boy band.
Oh, did he?
In LA, that he moved out there, and I did not know this. So what was it like being in a boy band? Did you feel like you guys were...
We're going to get to the serious topic.
Well, this is pretty serious because
you.
I would say this informs pretty much everything that we're all doing right now from the boy band trauma. I mean, I think it was two things. One, being in a band with your brothers can be incredibly rewarding because you're all trying to achieve something together. And when you meet those milestones, when you record your first album, when you get those accolades from people in the industry who, you know, think you can make it, then it's like, oh, wow, this is really great. But then at the same time, it's the worst thing ever because you are business partners with your family. And that's all we knew. I mean, I think a lot of the relationship that we have today is starting because we have now realized we're no longer business partners. We can actually be family.
Yeah.
But that's all we knew growing up. And it was fun at times, but it was also incredibly painful at times.
I mean, siblings fight as it is. So I imagine having to be forced. Well, I don't know. Were you forced? Do you feel like you were forced?
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of how he felt.
We were forced. We were forced. And I would say, like, look, I'm not in any way upset about being forced to do that because I think it gave us clear direction for life. I think it gave us so many wonderful tools and skills that we use today. But there was the obsessiveness about it that tends to kind of be like, man, would I have done this if I had full autonomy over it? And probably not, but again, I'm glad I stuck with it.
How long, like what age were you guys when you guys stopped this?
I was in high school. I was a sophomore in high school when it stopped. So that was like 15 or 16.
I was a junior, so
okay.
16.
And then what's the age difference? Because you have 4 brothers.
There's 4 brothers. There's 3 other brothers other than me.
Yeah. So Chris is the second oldest, and then David.
He's the oldest by like 2 or 3 years. I don't know.
2 or 3 years. How much older is he than you?
I don't know how old
He's
my brother
2.5
is.
years older than me.
Okay.
So.
I'm gonna go to the person that's reliable.
There you go.
And then Josh is how many years younger?
He's a year younger than me.
Okay. So Chris, I do need to get a copy of those videos. And you said you mentioned an album. There's an album?
Yeah, we recorded an album.
I need a copy of the album.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not gonna give it to you.
Here's the thing. Some things don't need to be on the internet.
Everything ain't podcast material.
I'm looking for some background music.
I have prided myself on keeping that off the internet because the first thing people do is like YouTube, Google, what was the name of the band? And I'm like, thank God we had a website, remember?
Mm-hmm. Oh. www.mp3.com/ I'm not saying the name of the group.
Oh, wow.
I still don't know the name of the group.
We're not going to say it. It's not important. It's not important to the story.
Wow.
Why? Because if you say it, can we find you on the internet?
Nope. No. Well, can't find it.
Doesn't matter.
All right. Well, after this is off the record, I want to know the name of the band.
Yeah. No, you got to be family. Family.
Hey, I like that.
It's got to run deep.
I'm going to work on that. I don't know how.
Can we get to why Chris is here on the episode with us?
We'll get there, yeah. So, Chris, what was it like growing up with Caleb?
Oh, wow. It was frustrating for the most part. And the reason I say that is because there were things that Caleb specifically did that I got blamed for.
So
I beg your pardon.
The corporate punishment, right? If one person did something and maybe lied about it, then everybody's getting the punishment, and the punishment was pretty rough and harsh. So I had a lot of resentment towards all my brothers because I felt like, man, why am I getting whooped for something I didn't do?
Yeah,
right?
I got
and so that's where the frustration would come from.
I didn't do nothing.
I don't believe that because I was the baby out of my brothers, and I do know, I'm sorry, but I do know that I used that at points. And so I'm sorry that he did that to you. Out of my own personal experience.
I'm telling you, I didn't do it. I maintain my innocence to this day. I didn't do nothing.
We'll take a polygraph.
Right. And so there you have it. Somebody, trying to get to the truth of the matter, what happened, who did it, who broke it, who's lying. And you have multiple people saying, I didn't do it. So everybody's getting it, right?
Yeah,
I really didn't do it, though.
I mean, I feel like...
That's how I feel.
So that's how you feel?
That's how I didn't do it.
Well, I know I didn't do it.
And he's like, I still got punished.
No, we did. Like, because our mom would be like, look, if one of y'all don't confess, all y'all getting it. And we're just like... So we, we maintained our silence, but it was a silly thing.
Man, was it? I wonder if it was consistently the same person though.
Yes,
you,
Joshua. No, my other brother.
So he just sat back. He's like, it wasn't me.
He admitted that he did a lot of the mischievous behavior and just stayed silent because he would rather go down with a group than go down alone.
Have you guys ever, like, now that you guys are adults as brothers, like, let's say at a family dinner or anything, ever gotten like with your parents and like really told like some of the things like you did as kids that like your parents never knew?
Nope.
No. There's a couple things that I know I've done. I'm like, I'm never telling my dad that.
Oh, well, I mean,
like my mom knows a lot of stuff that I've done but like to me, there's no point in like going back, but there's some stuff that I would laugh just to I'd want to tell my dad just to see what he says.
I gotcha.
But I'm not going to. I'm waiting for the opportune moment.
No, the only reason I asked is because I don't know how many years ago it was, but my brother Jeff was over. My brother Tyler was in town, and we had some family dinner on Sunday, and we were sitting around the fire pit outside, and we were just going through stories from when we were growing up, and stuff just kept coming up that my mom was like, wait, how did what? I didn't know anything about this. And we're like, yeah, that's how you keep it. So it was a cool moment. Well, for me, sorry, I know.
I was innocent. I didn't do anything.
No, anything that happened, somebody was snitching, and then we all got whooped. So they knew everything from my perspective anyway.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. You got the blame. That's rough.
Me too.
The real reason why we're here, we get on tangents.
Thank you. Let's get to Chris. Go on.
Anyways, so Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, a little bit about your journey. And then you do have this company. What's the company called?
Wellness District LA.
In LA. Tell us a little bit about your journey and kind of what got you to opening up this company, Wellness District LA, and your goals for it.
Yeah, so I live in Los Angeles, and I've been living there for now, 20 years. And after we quit the band, I went to college. And during my time in college, I got connected to some ministries on campus, and I started leading a campus ministry and kind of found that I had a calling towards ministry. And so I wanted to either be a pastor or be in ministry in some type of form. And then I went to the Army and joined the military to be an Army chaplain. I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. I didn't want to be, in a pulpit saying, hey, everybody can follow Jesus, and not having some like real life experience to speak from. One of the reasons that I got into the wellness space was because having been an Army chaplain now for over 12 years and having also worked in church ministry in that context, I felt that I was not providing people with the full answer, or at least a holistic approach to why the world is the way that it is, what methods can we use to heal other than prayer. And some of the things that I was also discovering in this time in my journey was like, wow, we really been, our eyes have been kind of blinded to some of this stuff that is available to us. And whether that's intentional or not, I don't know.
Right.
But I went on a personal journey to find out, like, okay, what is the reason behind, what is the root cause of why somebody might be dealing with, maybe it's chronic pain or disease or, trauma of any kind. Like, what is the real reason other than just like sin, right?
Yeah.
Well, the world is sinful and, X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
Nice. So, for what personal experiences in your life led you to go start that journey?
So I was dealing with chronic neck pain for a long time. I mean, months and months and months. And by the time I finally got like good insurance, I was like, oh, I'm going to go see a good doctor. Then they're going to like really like fix me up. And I know that some of the discussions Caleb has had, he's like, Dad, why didn't you ever take this to the doctor? Or so you can see.
It makes me so mad. Man, oh my gosh, it makes me so mad.
It's one of his pain points, right? It's like we want to be able to one day be able to afford health insurance, or just be able to walk into the doctor's office and like, yeah, I'm here, find out what's wrong with me, fix me up. And so when that day comes and then you're met with, oh, well, here's some pills. Oh, you might deal with this for the rest of your life. It became really, really, I would say, devastating to me, especially in that moment, because I felt there was no hope. And I felt like, wow, this is the best that we have to offer.
Yeah.
So there must be a better way. I really, truly felt that I was part of a system. I was just a number, and that they weren't going to do anything extra to help me other than give me the medication. And also being in the military, knowing the path that leads, with some buddies of mine who have an addiction or who have died by suicide using powerful medications, I was like, this can't be it. And
there's got to be more.
I'm not sure I want to go down this road. So I started looking into alternative healing.
Yeah, which I think is awesome, which I also just want to say thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Truly.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay.
Shout out to Chris.
No.
No, I'm still reeling on my dad never taking me to the doctor's office.
You want to thank your brother for being in service?
I did.
You piggybacked off me.
You good? Anyway, no, it's a funny story. So I asked
Really,
my dad.
truly, I would just want to say I respect that. And
Thank you.
I know it's a big step and a big journey. I have a brother that's in the military, and so obviously I've not been through the process, but I've heard a little bit. And so, thank you. I know words can never be enough, but thank you.
And I just want to echo what he said. Yeah.
Perfect.
And you
I'm still mad
wonder
about
why
my dad never take me. I asked our dad, I was like, hey, how come? I was like, Dad, why don't I ever remember going to a doctor's office from 0 to 18? You know what he told him? He said, you was all right. I was like, okay.
You were, weren't you?
It doesn't matter.
He took us to the doctor.
I remember, I think one checkup when I was like very young.
And you survived.
Yeah.
Did all right.
Well,
No, but lo and behold, I think my son got sick and my dad was like, you take him to the doctor's office? I was like, he'll be all right.
Isn't it funny how the grandparent role switches?
He was so
quick?
mad. He was like, you got to take him to the doctor, son. Take him. I was like, nah, he's good.
What I like though that you said is because so not personally, I haven't gone to the doctor seeking like, hey, this is really wrong. I mean, of course I've gone to the doctor for, but like, this is really wrong with me. Like what can we do? You said you felt like there was a sense of loss of hope of like that you've seen from others and a little bit probably from your personal experience. And I think that does get lost in the healthcare system. Not to rag on them because I know that I work in the healthcare system. But I know that I have been through the journey where you get to that road and it's like, well, this may work, this may not work, but we don't really have an answer for you. And that doesn't give you that definite like, oh, I'm going to get some relief. I'm finally going to, it's going to be okay. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about your journey and your clinic that you started and kind of the different type of therapies that you've been involved with. Yeah.
So Wellness District is a coaching platform and an agency. And what we do is we help people who are looking to heal using alternative methods, right? So people come to us who have anxiety, depression, trauma, poor sleep, maybe insomnia, or they might have an autoimmune disease, and they have found zero answers in the Western medical system.
Did you bring him to consult me?
Nope.
This is an intervention.
Apparently.
You're saying you need some help. And people want to get off their medication. They're like, I've been trying everything and I don't feel like myself on this medication. So what we do is we help find them the best alternative ways to heal, whether they be a life coach, a therapist, a nutritionist, a fitness coach. We help them get connected to things like brain mapping and neurofeedback therapy. And we add everything into their wellness journey, everything that they need, and remove anything that they don't. And that's really important because if you go to any healer, they might tell you, oh, you need to spend like 6 months with me working on this issue. But what we do is we take a look at the person holistically and say, actually, this other issue over here is probably a bigger deal than dealing with this. For an example, there was a client who was dealing with epileptic form activity in the brain. We didn't know that until we mapped his brain, but he had been going to therapy, doing this deep traumatic work with this therapist, and they never thought to like look at the brain. And so we found that he was having many seizures in his brain. And those many seizures were causing him to disassociate. And so that to me was just like, it's such a game changer, right? It's like some things you need to bring regulation to. We need to actually bring regulation back to the brain before we start trying to uncover and unpack some of the deep trauma things.
So with that, so with the clients that you get that come through your door, for someone that is probably potentially hearing about this for the first time, where would you say, because you're based out of LA, but someone here in Kansas City, if they think, hey, I don't feel right, maybe they don't know if they should go to therapy first, maybe they don't know if they should get to brain mapping first. How does someone like very new to the overall just wellness holistically, where does someone start? Like where does someone even like begin to even have a good thought and like, where's go at? Where do I start in the game of like wellness on the journey? Like where's the starting line?
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people, therapy, a lot of people say, oh man, I should really start therapy. And the first thing that comes to mind is talk therapy, which I think is beneficial too. And maybe you can speak more to that, but I'm really interested in the different types of therapies that you've mentioned that you can consult people. But yeah, that's a very good question of
where does even somebody begin?
Yeah.
Like, if they just
I would
don't
say the
feel
easiest
right.
entry point or place you would begin is something called integrative therapy. Because integrative therapy is going to look at some of the other systems in your body, whether it be your nervous system, whether it be your emotional system, or your, biological or chemical systems. They're going to look at some of these different systems in the body and find out what is the root cause of why you might be feeling anxiety. We now know that anxiety can be caused by different foods that you eat based on the gut-brain connection. Right. So a lot of the sugary foods or a lot of the things that aren't really nutritious in value that we feed the kids can also be causing them to have anxiety. And so we think like, oh, well, maybe they need some medication, or no, we actually might need to adjust your diet. And just even thinking in those terms will radically shift like, okay, how do I approach wholeness? How do I approach healing? And I need to be looking at different ways to combat this versus just the symptom. I would call the symptom versus the root. So I would say look up some integrative healers in your area. That's a great place to start. And then maybe think about doing some things like yoga, breath work, getting some blood work done from a functional medicine or functional nutritionist. They're going to interpret your blood work in labs very differently than a normal doctor who's just going to look at some of these biomarkers and say, oh, you're just low in vitamin D. Oh, you have high blood pressure. Oh, you have high cholesterol. They're looking for these main things, but integrative and functional medicine, they're going to be looking at multiple things, even down to your hormone levels.
Interesting. Sorry, that took me back to doctor visits. I'm like, yeah, that is what they've told me. And typically, the answer to that is to throw on not to just throw on medicine on people, but you typically, are given, hey, take this vitamin, or here is a medicine to help your anxiety, your depression. And as someone who has experience, I experience anxiety and depression.
Sure.
I've been on medication, and my goal is to eventually get off that. And so, thank you for bringing him.
Hey.
This is really cool. I said, this might be Levi's therapy session.
It can be. I don't, that's fine. So you said integrative therapies. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's where someone could Google and just maybe find out where
you will likely find some practitioners in your area.
Okay. Are there branches underneath the integrative therapist, or is that just entitled?
No, it's a lot. There's multiple types of integrative therapy, just so I can anchor it in an experience that I had. So I went to an integrative therapist after I went and saw that doctor who told me I was going to have neck pain for the rest of my life. So somebody at my church actually was like, hey, you should go check out this person. And I went and checked out this person. I was like, what is integrative therapy? What is acutonics? What is vibrational harmony? I was asking all these questions and Googling, and then so much stuff came up. So I was like, you know what? Let me just call him, book an appointment. And so I did. And during the session, we're talking like you and I are, and he's just asking me some different questions. What might you think, or what do you think might have caused the chronic neck pain? Where do you think it's rooted? Okay. And then he starts to do what's called EFT, which is an emotional freedom technique or emotional freedom therapy. And we're doing this tapping on different parts of the body. And he's asking me to repeat after him. And I'm like, what is he doing? Like, why am I saying these things and tapping here and da-da-da-da-da? He's like, how do you feel? I was like, I feel good.
Like, yeah, I'm good, right?
I'm good. He's like, okay, let's do another round. So we do another round. We're doing another round and another round. And I started to feel like calm and relaxed. I'm like, okay. And then he lays me down on the table. He says, I'm going to work on your meridian points. And he starts banging these like tuning forks together and puts them on different points of my body. I was like, oh, it's kind of nice. It's just vibrating. Okay. All right. Okay. Then he starts to put these bowls, you know, I now know them as Tibetan singing bowls, but these bowls, he puts one on my chest and one at my feet and just starts making this noise with the bowls. I'm like, okay. And the entire time I am in my head thinking, what is he doing? I'm trying to understand so I can tell somebody about this.
Sounds like witchcraft to me.
It definitely sounded like witchcraft. And
well, I say, imagine going through it and you're probably like, what is happening?
He's talking about chakras and all this stuff and stuff I had literally never heard of before. And so my wife, she picks me up from the therapy session and she's like, so what did you uncover? And I'm like, so he did this and this. And I'm like really trying to intellectualize. And that's just who I am. And tell her exactly what happened and then the order it happened and what method he was using. And she was kind of like, So
wasn't what she expected.
No, well, she was like, okay, well then I need you to maybe listen to this song that I want to post on YouTube. Tell me what you think. So she's a musician. She's playing the song and I'm watching the video and I'm just like, and I start to kind of like well up a little bit. And then I start to tear up and then I'm like, I don't know if this is just the song. I like the song and maybe, and then
Which probably made her feel really good in the moment. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm sure she felt great. You know, it was one of my favorite songs. But then I start to cry and I'm like, and then I start to like wail and weep and weep. And we're sitting in the Target parking lot and we're supposed to go in and go shopping. I was like, babe, can you just take me home? I don't know what's happening to me. And I just broke down and cried for 3 hours.
Wow.
3 hours. And the whole time I'm up in my head going, what did he do or what's happening? But my body is releasing all of this tension and energy and emotion. Wow. And I was floored and like literally cried myself to sleep.
So I mean, just to kind of before that, were you much of a crier?
No.
Up to that point?
You know what's funny? I hadn't cried for probably 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Before that. So there was certainly a lot of pent up emotion, pent up things that my body needed to release. But going back to the, you know, why we store up so much energy and why my body needed to release it was because of the trauma that I experienced. And I can point to probably more than one example, but I know for a fact at age 11, when our parents divorced, I was 11. I don't know how old you were.
It was 10.
10. Okay.
We just talked about how old we are.
I just remember the number 11 and everybody else didn't matter.
Right.
Like everybody else is on their own journey. Cause I in that moment I felt alone. I was like, for the first time, my family is torn apart and I guess I have to figure things out for myself. And then growing up, I was a really, really sensitive kid. And he would tell you, I cried a lot as a kid. My mom told me, she was like, we had to come pick you up with the babysitter because you wouldn't stop crying. And so I remember at that time at age 11, when my parents told us, like, hey, we're getting a divorce, I was like, all right, I'm not going to cry. And I didn't cry for 10 years. 10 years. And then I didn't cry. That time that I cried, all somebody asked me was like, hey, how's your relationship with your mom? Instantly, like, just broke down crying for no reason. I was like, oh. So I had this pattern of really stuffing emotions into some place.
Like
compartmentalizing it, not understanding that was actually causing other issues in my body.
That's so interesting. I mean, and I've heard from different, whether it be TikTok or websites, I've heard, how the brain and those, pent up emotions and compartmentalizing, how that can lead into your body, but, you don't hear about it as much and you don't get to really, like integrative therapists, is that what you said, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've never heard of an integrative therapist before. So, I mean, this is really It's really interesting, kind of eye opening. So
I mean, take it with a grain of salt. He didn't say his neck pain is gone. So let's just
see.
Yeah, because you're the one causing it.
It started flaring up
as soon as
I got off the plane.
It's like, oh no, Caleb's coming.
But that's where that saying comes from. Like, you're a pain in my neck. That can be a literal thing for someone who has experienced trauma at the hands of a family member. Like, yeah, you could be a pain in someone's neck. It's a trigger.
So the first person you saw, what was his type of therapy? The sound healing, is that we said?
Sound healing or acutonics.
Okay.
But he also would just call himself an integrative.
Okay.
Healing.
What other type of therapies have you witnessed, been a part of?
Cranial sacral therapy. You ever heard of that one?
What was it?
Cranial sacral therapy.
No.
Basically, it's a specific type of gentle massage that allows your cerebral spinal fluid to be released from the back of your neck at the top of your spine, and they're moving that cerebral spinal fluid throughout the rest of your body because that can get clogged up. Myofascial release, same thing. There's like a network of tissue in your skin it's a really gentle massage technique. Then there's spinal energetics, and then there's hypnotherapy, and then the list goes on.
So like the only holistic therapy I've ever been introduced to, or had done, because I had a friend that was she was learning at the time, was Reiki.
Yeah.
And which, when again she started talking about chakras, and I'm like, what's a chakra? Like Shaka Khan? Like, I didn't know what was happening. But it was a really cool, to be honest, it was a really cool experience. And
how did you feel afterward?
It's hard to remember because it was years ago, but I do remember like feeling calm. Definitely, I definitely felt like there was a release of something and kind of peaceful, which was interesting to me because I was Reiki, and you may be able to explain it better than me.
Yeah, Reiki is like a form of energetic healing. I would say that it feels like a warm, energetic hug that somebody's holding space for you and just pure love. And I think that's the best way that I could.
Yeah, because they don't actually touch you.
They don't touch you.
It's like they hold their hands over or something. Which I know you're probably saying.
Sounds like witchcraft to me, buddy.
Do you know? Our dad had a Reiki session.
What?
So I have often asked my family to participate.
Have you got him on this yet?
So yeah, my dad actually, I had him do a Reiki session.
Goodness gracious.
He loved it.
No, he didn't.
I think it lowered his blood pressure for sure.
You think so?
At the time.
I believe it.
Hey, look, everything he's explaining to me is all new to me, and it's wild to hear these stories from my brother, like to know that he hasn't cried in 10 years. Like, I'm like, goodness gracious. But also, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I don't remember the last time I cried.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you.
Well, no, and like you said, you grew up a sensitive kid. Yeah. I was a very sensitive kid growing up as well. And for years, I'd cry at a movie. I'm not going to lie about it. I'd cry, but as life goes on and, things hit you from left and right, you go through losses and you do compartmentalize those. Cause I'll be honest, I've compartmentalized pretty much everything in my life. Mm-hmm. The only type of therapy I've ever tried was, well, I told you I did that Reiki, but it was really just a friend was needing to practice.
Yeah.
But also, I did BetterHelp for a couple of months, and then I quit that because, oftentimes and it's not that the therapist was a bad fit. It just, I don't know. I just wasn't meshing with it as well at the time. And so I think a lot of times you do compartmentalize and you just go. And so for me, like, I just dive into work, and that keeps my mind going, my work, my family, and that keeps my life going. But I know that I have to work through these things. And I feel like I'm stuck sometimes. And then, you go back to, well, I did try therapy, but I feel like a lot of times when people try therapy and they don't find the right therapist, or maybe they just weren't open to it at the time, because sometimes you have to be open and accepting to and willing and to be vulnerable. They tend to use that. And I'm saying for me, I'm not just saying for people, I know I'm me, to kind of like, oh yeah, I'll get to therapy, but I've already tried it. So what would you suggest for people who have been through therapy or tried therapy and it didn't work for them? And again, like you said, there's different type of therapy. So you said integrative healing, all this kind of stuff. But
Yeah, I would
how
say,
would you get over them having the fear of, not fear or the holdback, the resistance? What's the right
Well,
word?
I think that there's a negative stigma around everything that you're talking about. I think that there can be a negative stigma about it, and there's hesitancy just because you don't. I think sometimes people don't want to admit that they even need to see a therapist, or they may even need to address their wellness. Like, and I think that there's a stigma around it. Like, I told my dad, I was like, Dad, I think you might need to go to therapy. He was like, I'm not going to talk to nobody. I was like, Dad, why not? Like, he's like, I don't. Because I think there's a negative stigma around it. Like, if someone's in therapy, I think the cultural thought is they're crazy or they're mentally unbalanced, and it's like maybe they just need to work some stuff out and unpack some stuff, or pack in some stuff and like compartmentalize some things. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, I think generations, become more open and more open. You mentioned your dad, like, I don't need therapy. That's how I feel like that generation is. Like, they didn't want to talk. You don't talk about it. Whereas, our generation, they were born into that, like,
Right.
you don't talk about it. You just, keep going. But then you're also getting around the younger generations that are very open to it. And so you're like
I
seeing there
always
is
remind
benefit.
people this is a generational thing, and it's a generational privilege, right? Our parents grew up in a time where they were still fighting for a lot of their survival needs, and their parents definitely grew up in a time where, I mean, you think about World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam War, like constant wars. And then even before that, there was slavery. There was, so much was going on, diseases. So the fact that we have enough silence, enough space, and we have the information like literally at our fingertips.
Yeah. Especially with social media and everything. Not just social media, but like the internet.
The internet, you're exposed to so much information that can be so useful, but then to admit that you actually need help is another leap. Think about how many people you've ever tried to invite to church and they'll be like, I don't think I'm not ready. No.
Yeah.
Or I'm fine, or I'm a good person, right? It's making that mental leap to realize maybe I do need some help, but I don't know like necessarily what type of help I need. And that's where we come in. And that's why I built my company, is to help guide people on the right paths to the healing journey that's right for them.
Yeah. So kind of, you mentioned this because you're like, you didn't ask him if his neck still hurts. So going...
He still hasn't cleared it up. Yeah.
Well, we're going to clear it up. So obviously, as you get
My neck
older,
feels much better.
There we go. So you have seen through these, the integrative therapists, you've seen a lot of relief in your own life.
Yes.
And can you explain like what type of therapy or what type of integrative therapist has been obviously with your practice, they're all beneficial to you because you want to learn so that you can educate people what's right for them.
Right. So I would say for the most effective thing for me has been what's called somatic therapy that's dealing with the body. Any sort of release that would be generated from whether it's Reiki, whether it's breath work, whether it's myofascial release, any type of thing that's engaging the body, because I'm so up in my head. For me to go through the work of catching a therapist up to where I'm already mentally, where I'm already at, then it's more work for me and it's almost frustrating. So I can understand why some people don't want to go to a therapist and talk about their problems.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that your body isn't ready to release that. And so there's kind of this balance where you have to do some processing maybe in real time. You're like, wow, maybe if you're thinking about divorce, you're thinking about changing jobs, you're thinking about suicide, you're contemplating whether or not you want to give up on any of these things that are important to you in life, then you should probably talk to someone about those things. If you're having behavioral issues, you might need to see a behavioral therapist or a cognitive behavioral therapist. But those behavioral issues might be rooted in something else that you may not be fully in control of. And that's why I always recommend, if you can, get a brain map before engaging in a specific type of therapy, because those behavioral issues might be something that's wired in your brain, and talking about it isn't necessarily going to be the best avenue for you.
So can you, can you explain what brain mapping is?
So if I can,
Sorry, I know that's probably
it's a big topic. The best way that I can explain it is if you have a 21 room mansion, right? And that's your brain. And somebody came along and mapped out every single piece of furniture, every single light bulb, every single pipe, every single piece of wiring in that house and told you exactly how that house was operating just based on the blueprint. So a brain mapping is a 20-minute recording of your brain wave activity. And through reading those brain waves, they're going to be able to see things like anxiety, depression. They're going to be able to see things like trauma, PTSD, things that are overfiring together or neurons that are underfiring. And speaking of which, with this compartmentalization thing, my brain is actually so compartmentalized that it was drawing power from the frontal lobe of my brain and diverting too much power to the back right part of my brain.
Interesting.
Which was causing my overall performance to be lower than it should be, especially at somebody my age.
Yeah.
So it was like finding out, you know what? The lights are not off in that part of the house, but they're really dim. Why are they so dim? Maybe we need to check the circuit breaker to see why electricity isn't flowing to that part of the house.
Yeah. Kind of like how you would do maintenance on your house,
Yeah.
doing maintenance on your brain.
Exactly.
That's okay. Interesting. I've hadn't heard of brain. I mean, maybe I've probably heard of brain mapping before.
I haven't.
But I mean,
Did you have our dad's brain map too?
Yeah. Learned a lot. learned a lot.
He's like, it makes sense now.
It does. And that's the cool thing about some of these things. It's like, it's not scary unless you're really scared of what's on the other side, but the answers are on the other side. And I think when you find answers, you can find peace because you're not wondering and guessing like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Or why don't I feel normal? Why don't I feel normal? Why don't I feel normal? And the more you keep asking those questions and not getting the answers, the more frustrating that becomes. And you just go into this cycle, right?
Yeah.
So once we mapped my dad's brain, interestingly, they said his brain was like a Ferrari.
Did you know your dad was?
The fact that his processing speed is higher than the speed of most people, but it would make sense, right? He can quote you scripture. He can tell you things that nobody else on the planet could be able to tell you just because that's how his brain works. But then there's some trauma that is causing his brain not to be able to make certain connections emotionally. And so therefore we get the experience that we have with him. And now knowing that, a lot of the things that we experienced with him growing up make a lot of sense. I'm like, oh, okay. But that gives me peace. I think that gives him peace. But then we started working on some of those networks and unbreaking some of those networks in his brain. And then I would pick him up and he'd be like, he would start to make these connections. Like, my mom never told me she loved me. And then we'd just start crying. And it was like,
my dad never told me. No, I'm playing.
he definitely told you.
You about to get fired. You about to get fired on episode 3.
Episode 3, Caleb got terminated. Julia, we think we good on time?
What time are we at?
Yeah, we're at probably close to 40.
All right.
Okay. Well,
let's break here.
So we're gonna do. Chris is here. We're gonna do a part 2 to this episode. So this is part 1. Welcome to that intro.
Obviously.
But I definitely want to dive in more to you because this is this is really cool and really interesting. Just for me, I'm learning a lot. One question I want to ask before we jump into our weekly segment, which what's it called, Caleb?
I don't remember.
Anyways, so obviously we know we live in a world that's not based on money, but you have to have money and stuff. So, is there any type of insurance that covers any of this stuff, or is it? Because I know that's going to be a fear. That's a fear of people too. Well, I don't have the money for it, or I don't, which I think you should really look like if it's going to benefit me in the long run, like maybe this is something worth, putting money into, like a new car, or something like that. But does insurance help in any of that, or is it all?
So in the holistic and integrative health space, it is difficult to have insurance pay for some of these modalities. They are moving the needle towards getting insurance to cover a lot of these treatments. I know acupuncture is one of those things that insurance might now cover, but you have to check with your insurance and check with the specific practice.
Okay.
So a lot of practices don't take insurance, but a lot of practices do, depending on how they're categorized. The industry is rapidly shifting and changing all the time, so you never know.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that your insurance will pay for. Like 10 years ago, insurance wouldn't pay for an Apple Watch, but now they will. It's like, hey, you're going to keep track of your health. You're going to watch your steps. You're going to,
Wait, insurance gonna pay for an Apple Watch?
They
for me?
can, yeah.
Honestly, I think they do. And it makes me mad.
I have one, but I feel like I need an upgrade now.
Yo, I need to get one. Let me get that Apple Watch Ultra.
Right. Well, no, great information. It's just that was something that popped in my mind just because I know
That's a great question.
I've heard that before. But this is time for our weekly segment. You'll learn it one day. It's literally the title of the show.
Oh, that's yeah.
It's called That's How You Feel. So, Chris, what we do.
I still forgot I forgot. As you said, what's the title of the show? I was like, oh, it's Rants and Praises again. I was like, oh, and then you said That's How You Feel. Never mind.
Anyways.
Sorry.
So we do this thing where it's kind of like our rant or praises. So we can, something that either grinds our gears or frustrates us and not.
Or you can show gratitude to something that's like, you know what? That was a good thing.
Yeah. But just a disclaimer, these are our feelings on doesn't mean you're right in the situation. It's
we're not giving out any medical advice. This is all just not even suggestions. This is just our experiences
For entertainment purposes only.
This is a bit. This is all comedy. Can I just do my rant real quick?
Let's go.
Because it happened to me this morning. It happened like, can y'all just let me merge? When people are driving and I'm trying to get, first of all, this was my bad because you know how like some lanes, like at a red light, you'll get to the red light and then like you should have merged like before the light, but like you still have like another lane and then it has to merge. There are people that won't they'll match my speed to make sure I don't get to.
Yes.
Can you just I'm not out here slow poking it in the merge lane. Like I'm up to speed.
And when it's at that point, you feel like they're just targeting you.
I do. I also feel like it's racist because I feel like they can see me on the inside of my car. If you just again, it was my fault. I should have got over before. But bro, just let me merge real quick. I'm just trying to go.
Well, since we're talking about traffic,
it makes me so mad.
I do get frustrated at that too, especially when you're say you're on a highway, 3-lane highway, and you're in whatever. You can't get over on this side, you can't get over this side, and it seems like neither of them are wanting to move. Which you live in California, so I'm sure you have frustrations with traffic.
I have a great time driving in California. I will say that experience is not common. I'm an outlier. So
because in California, here's the thing, in LA, there's traffic, but most people are doing like 80 and up. Like people got places to be.
Well, I mean, that's what we do here in Missouri.
No. My brother David.
That's what I do here
My
in
brother
Missouri.
David explained it. He said, Caleb, the people here in Kansas City, they just mosey. It's like that's such an accurate description.
I see. I
They're
disagree.
just moseying along on the freeway. Oh my gosh!
Not to cause divide between states. I feel like people in Kansas mosey because I will tell you, you're from Missouri.
Yeah.
Kansas drivers suck, right?
Everybody
No offense.
sucks.
I'm sorry.
Everybody sucks.
Anyways, my main thing is people driving slow in the fast lane.
Yeah.
Ticks me off. I cannot stand it. That's all I got to say.
So
I mean, I feel like it
why
speaks
are you
for.
so angry about?
Because I got
He hasn't been brain mapped, Chris.
Yeah, I haven't been brain out, but I got places to be. And if you know you're going under the speed limit or just at the speed limit, the fast lane is not your place.
Bro, we got
Move
ticket money
on
in the
over.
fast lane. Move over.
Yes.
The fast lane of people that got ticket money. No, but I'm also kind of a hypocrite because the on ramp. Like if I'm already on the freeway and I'm in the right lane and I see somebody coming in and they're doing 35, I'm like, what are you doing over here? And then they get in and I'm like, oh my.
So actually,
You're
you were
holding
talking
up
about
life.
merging. This is a dumb story. May look bad on me. I don't. Well,
We
whatever.
gotta go, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
Shut up. So just like last week, I was coming off of a junction and a semi truck just came speeding up and was like, I didn't even see the semi truck. And so I was like, okay, I got to slow down because this truck is coming up. So I'm slowing down. And then he starts honking at me, being angry. And so, yes, I honked back at him. Anyways, so I slow down. He gets over. Then I get over. And this idiot, sorry, This
No, that's how you feel, man.
This is how I feel.
That's how you
this
feel.
idiot literally
Express it.
in a semi
Sure.
truck stops on the junction to get on the highway and pulls over onto it was 291 in the middle of this lane and stops the rest of traffic just to prove what point to me. Like literally none of like what are you doing here? So he was an idiot. That's how I feel.
That's how you feel.
That's how I feel.
Chris, you got anything you want to rant
man.
about real quick, or you want to show some gratitude to somebody? We're real negative over
It
here
ain't
right
gonna
now.
be you.
That's fine.
Gratitude. I mean, I think there is something to be said about your predisposition and your what they call vibes. So you change your vibration, you change your experience.
Chris
that is
also
true.
drives a Tesla, so I mean,
I drive a Tesla, and
What model?
It's Model 3.
No,
I think you're better than us over here.
Literally, I don't know. I thought he was gonna say S or X,
No,
and that's all I know
it's the
about
lowest,
Tesla.
it's the cheapest model. Speaking of driving and traffic, I'm thankful that I have not been in any major accidents.
Yeah.
I was in a major accident a couple of years ago. That's how I got the Tesla, because my other car was totaled. But nothing happened to me. But the two cars behind me, surgery, hospital, like
Yeah.
we got hit by a semi truck. So
Oh wow.
so I am grateful for the ability to drive, and that I have, for the most part, been kept safe driving around all of the chaos that I actually see all the time.
Yeah.
When I say I have great driving experiences, I do, but that doesn't mean like the car that's on fire
Yeah.
right there isn't having, they're having a
They're
bad day.
very bad day, yes.
This motorcycle I just saw crash, they're having a bad day. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad out there in LA, but yeah, so I'm grateful for.
Anyway, all right. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to another great episode of That's How You Feel. We will see you next week with a fresh new episode, part 2, mental health and therapy.
That's how we feel. You forgot it.
I didn't forget nothing. Leave that in too. I want you to leave so much more like raw on the tape just because it's great.